To try and make it worthwhile for you and keep it as interactive as possible. I work for InTechnology. How many of you are aware of InTechnology? We work with several of you, several housing, 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's okay, that's good. I mean, you probably know us actually for backup services. Is that right? Maybe network? InTechnology is actually a very significant communications provider. We're an Ofcom communications registered provider. We bought a BT business actually about 4 years ago. And we're one of the largest hosted IP telephony providers in the UK. And we're also rolling out unified communications over around OCS and Exchange. I'm the product director, so I'm responsible for all our voice and UC services at InTech. The subject of this presentation is not about features and all that type of stuff, because to be fair, I think that's probably done to death. It's more to do about the business case, and actually ties in quite nicely. I don't know whether anyone was in the Gartner session that was just before now. But it's very interesting when he was talking about the total cost and about how spending is totally different to cost, and and how you have to manage your assets and that type of thing. And totally coincidentally, we didn't realise that he was going to be talking about that. That's exactly what we're seeing as well. Is that when we look at telephony estates, what we're finding is a phenomenal amount of costs that people actually have forgotten about. And when we actually tot it up and then compare it against with a managed service provider, we can actually buy a brand new phone system, brand new comm system with new handsets for actually less of a monthly charge with no capex than what we're paying today on the OpEx. And it's quite shocking. We were amazed at some of the costs that were available, and so I thought it was quite pertinent given the session we've just been in. So I'll probably start okay because it's season. So in terms of what hosted communications is, cloud is a buzzword and it is overused, and there's always a problem with that because it causes a lot of confusion. But if you look about the number of communications platforms you may have in your organisation, then you'll have telephony and email, and you'll certainly have mobiles. What you'll also be considering, if not yet haven't deployed it, are platforms such as instant messaging, conferencing. Presence usually comes with IM. How many of you have got video conferencing or video calling? Oh, a large number of you. So you know how complex and expensive and actually underutilised, frankly, video conferencing is. But it's incredibly powerful technology. But this is one of the things that we're beginning to see a real increase, particularly on person-to-person video calling rather than necessarily conference calls. Peer-to-peer VoIP, the Skype generation, like using their computers with headsets. And then there's remote collaboration where you can actually work on documents and PCs, with staff that may not be in the same place as you. And the whole thrust of unified communications is how do you make sense of all this? How do you make sense of all these different applications, the contexts, the ways of working in a way that actually makes sense? Now, it's interesting that if you look at unified comms, it was RIM with BlackBerry that cracked it first. They were the first people to understand that if you integrate your email with your mobile phone and make it really easy to use, people will buy it. That's exactly what they did. They didn't invent email or mobile phones. What they did is they understood how people worked. And this is what unified communications is about in an IT environment. So if you look about how most communications architecture, and I suspect that this is quite typical in this room, is that you'll have a corporate network, you'll have a number of sites, and you'll have a main site that you'll deliver your IT services from here: telephony, email, IM, and video. And what happens is that people at remote sites use the network and they contact the server centralized infrastructure. All hosted means is all that stuff is now on the network. Effectively, taking technology as an example, our corporate our network here has 4 data centers within the network, and therefore if you have access to the network, you have access to the communication services. So all of these things that were originally running on services and infrastructure in your data center are now provided effectively as a utility from within the network, and that's all what hosted communications is. By the way, if anyone has any questions throughout this, or it doesn't make sense, then please put your hand up. There's some time at the end for questions, but it'd be quite good if you've anything that's of interest.
Okay, go on.
Go on.
Do you facilitate a hybrid environment whereby you can have a measure of your phone system still resident in the corporate on-site, for instance, where the call centers are involved and you've got a lot of technology and investment in reporting and performance management, and then still have the rest of the stuff off-site in the cloud with yourselves?
Absolutely. In fact, that's the most common way of doing it. So what normally happens is that the soft switch that manages all of the telephony, we put handsets directly connected to it, which is the pure hosted model, and then with PBXs or with telephony equipment, we put a SIP trunk. And it's all integrated. It's all exactly the same network. The only difference is that we deliver on a SIP trunk the call to a PBX that then delivers it to the handset. With a hosted, it's delivered directly to the handset, but it's exactly the same technology. It's not two systems, it's the same one. And in fact, the system that we use is from an outfit called Broadsoft. It's a large American outfit, and the vast majority of their business actually is SIP trunking. In the American market, SIP trunking is a much bigger market than hosted because it's seen as a replacement for POIs, ISDNs, that sort of thing.
What we've found as well is with a lot of big migrations where some of the bigger sites have actually kept with the existing PBX, we use them to sit into the network so we can get the call savings and cost benefit, and then eventually migrate them over.
Okay.
So it can be a very much joint approach.
With SIP trunking is actually where we're seeing the biggest interest from customers, because a SIP trunk is typically around £5 a channel, as compared with an ICN 30 channel, which is £14, BT list plus services, and on-net calls are free. It uses your existing network, and geographic numbers are typically around 40% cheaper than a typical CPS rate. I mean, it's simply because of the way BT charge for phone calls. If you've got a direct IP connection with us, we have our costs, so we can obviously half the price to you guys. So, hosted telephony, this is our Broadsoft platform. It's a full PBX replacement service. We have a full range of office phones. We standardise on Polycom. Things like voicemail comes as standard. We've got a range of very high-end receptionist consoles, help desk call centres, wall boards. Everything you would expect from a high-end PBX is in the system. And a lot of people seem to think the hosted is somewhat lightweight. We only sell to organisations of your size and larger. We don't focus at small businesses. We have ADT on this platform with 3,000 users. We have Howden's joining me, but the kitchen and bathroom people. That's 5,000 people that are using the system. The CBI, they're using this, and these are very, very demanding customers. Fujifilm is another example, and they buy it because of the flexibility of the DR and the way that they run their organisations, not because it's cheap. This is a very, very high value service, but it's also very good value as well. We also have a range of Microsoft hosted services, so we have hosted OCS. How many of you have OCS internally or considering OCS? Okay, a couple of you, yeah. OCS is Microsoft's communications platform, so it covers things like IM and video calling and audio conferencing, live meeting, all that type of thing. So we can provide that within the network. And then hosted exchange, which is the most mature of all the products. It's a pretty straightforward. It does what it says on the tin. It's exchange but in the network. But what we offer is all of these on demand per user, nicely integrated. It's a fully unified comms service. A little bit more detail about how our hosted telephony is built into the network. We have, we're the largest or the second largest, depending on how you have to count numbers, Broadsoft user in the UK, and Broadsoft are the world leaders, so that roughly equates to the second largest hosted IP telephony provider. The only one that is bigger than us is Verizon, and that's because they use account them. American multinationals are in the UK against that. We are a pure UK-based organisation. And then Huawei is our PS in the interconnect. We don't buy minutes from anyone. We are a telco. We have direct pairing interconnects into cable and wireless and BT. So if you take a telephony service from us, we will actually manage it all the way from your office, all the way through the network, all the way through to BT and cable and wireless, whoever terminates the calls. We don't use the internet anywhere. And therefore that's how we can guarantee quality of service and very high service levels.